Welcome back. Another week of Brothers on the Green. It's a very exciting week in golf, and last week it was fantastic as well. We had two outright winners last week in both the PGA Tour events. That makes number four and number five on the year, all for PGA Tour Pro Dice, the guy above me. So it was great. I mean, 5 out of 10, I believe. So we're hitting at a 50% clip now, and outright winners, which is ridiculous. And I say we, I really do again mean the guy above me. I've come close a couple times with Mr. Shane Lowry, but
Joel.
no winners yet. So it was a great week. Philly Cricket Club really held up to the test.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to get torn up, which it did look that way after Thursday, but
Mhm.
some weather came in. It made the course tough for Friday, Saturday. And then Sunday, no wind. They just really got those pins on top of those severe tiers. And the course was really perfect. I mean, there's nothing, again, nothing like Northeast golf. Like I said last week, that the condition of the course, the way it looks on camera, it was a beautiful test of golf. So, Dice, talk us through Straka's week.
Yeah, I mean, first off, like you said, with Straka, I just still don't get the numbers he's been getting. I sort of pointed out, most of the time when we were going over the odds boards, with just like how well he's played. He won the Amex earlier this year. Then outside of that, he's been a top 3, 5 player on tour consistently throughout the year, and he
Yep.
still gets priced below guys like like Jordan Spieth, Sung J M, Sam Burns even sometimes. I mean, it's like a week to week basis where he's below guys that he's simply a better golfer than. And obviously, we were able to take advantage of it last week, getting him at 45 to 1 in a 70-man field. But I mean, he just played great, right? He got off to a hot start. I think he was -8 on Thursday, something like
Yep.
that.
He was up there.
Yeah, he had 4 rounds in the 60s, so he just stayed on it, didn't really let the weather affect him, too much, was able to put up the scores that he needed to. Had a bit of a rough stretch to start the back nine yesterday, right? On 10 and 11, made two back-to-back bogeys to let others back into the tournament, but obviously clutched up end of the day. I thought a big moment was when Lowry chipped it to like a half an inch and he followed up,
Yep.
put it to 5 feet, and then making that birdie put on 15. I thought that was really the key thing to obviously put himself back in that position, tied with Lowry at the top of the leaderboard. But two winners. It's definitely a nice feeling. Obviously, ready to hopefully get another one at the major. But obviously, it's only a matter of time till we start getting a couple more viewers here and there. With we got 5 winners in 10 weeks. So I mean, that's going to say something, and people are going to follow the money at a certain point.
Yeah, we're gonna keep plugging along. It's been fun being able to do this with you on a week to week basis.
Yeah,
And really his two wins this year, I saw it pretty much his two best putting weeks of his career. And
exactly.
that makes a difference from closing it out on Sunday to,
Hmm.
just losing by one or two strokes, making those 4 to 7 footers on a consistent basis, which he did all week.
All
And
week.
he made a couple 25 plus footers throughout the week, which
Hmm.
those are huge when it comes to winning a PGA Tour event. So he's been consistent all year, tee to green, and once that putter gets hot,
Yeah.
he's able to compete with anyone in the world, right?
Yeah.
And his interview after was pretty interesting. They asked, what's your level of confidence going in, and he's just such a down to earth guy. He's like, well, to be honest, this course coming up does not fit me because I don't hit the ball very long. So, and the guy's like, well, we have more confidence than you do probably. So he's
Exactly.
that type of guy. He's down to earth. He's a great guy, and like we said, I think probably 6, 7 weeks ago. He just wakes up and hits a baby draw. I mean, that
That's
guy just flushes the ball. He had a couple fairway woods out of bunkers during the tougher days, Friday, Saturday, just into
Matt.
the heart of the green, just flushing the
A
ball.
shot on 18. It wasn't a
Yeah,
fairway wood, but it was a
that's a
long
long iron. Just, I mean, went right by the stick.
He just has such like a simple, efficient move. They always say, like for a big guy, yada yada, but he really does have such a simple move that when it comes to those pressure moments, it doesn't seem like he's trying to do too much. He's simply repeating something that he could do in his sleep, and obviously, it helps him a lot with closing out these events 2 times this year.
Yeah, and that pretty much solidifies him for the Ryder Cup, you would think.
100%. I was looking at some of the lists. It seems like they have 8 guys probably that are pretty much like I forget exactly what the list is off the top of my head, but those Europeans are playing so fucking well this year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, another guy that is a lock, right? Lowry, another solid week, but another, Sunday where he doesn't get it done.
I'm glad you didn't have him this. This was the closest because he was playing, well. He wasn't. His driver's finally back. I don't know if back's the right word because I don't know if it was really ever there. But his driver was in a very good spot all week, and he just couldn't make the putts that he was probably making most of the week on Sunday, and that's what it comes down to for the most part.
Yeah, no, 100%. JT, another great week. This week, a little different than RBC. RBC, he putted his absolute, you know what off.
Yeah,
And this week it was really ball striking. The one thing is he tries to hit these fairway wood cuts and he just double crosses
Holes.
them. Yeah, he
I know.
tries to hit these cuts and it hooks on him. But other than that, I mean, his iron play is back to JT-esque, in terms of being one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
Cantlay did what we thought Cantlay would do, right? Was in contention, kind of,
He had a
faltered
run
coming down the
yesterday on
stretch.
the front nine, and then yeah, he I just sort of simmered out after those
Yeah.
first pretty much.
Fleetwood, I mean, another solid finish.
Mhm.
He did not have the putter going at all the first 2 days, and then,
Yeah,
makes a couple good putts on the weekend, and he gets his tied for fourth finish. Uh,
classic birdie on 18
yeah,
to
makes his longest putt of the week probably. Bridgman, really consistent, solid golf. Happy for a guy like that.
putting stats.
Ridiculous. I didn't see him.
Gained over 11 strokes putting.
Wow,
He
that's
lost
awesome.
everywhere else throughout the bag.
And then the last guy we'll talk about this for this leaderboard is Mr. Cam Young. Finally just gets a good finish. He had Friday, Saturday, he was three over his last three both days, right? That's six over par clearly coming down the stretch in the couple rounds where other than that, he really played some great golf throughout the week. So that's exciting to see, especially as Cam Young backers, and especially when you see him 300 to 1 this week still. He's a guy that his driver was not great this week, but his iron play finally top 10 in the field for a couple rounds, which he has not even been close to for about a year's time.
Yeah.
It's been a long time
The
since
irons have been awful.
yeah, it's been bad. And then actually Keith Mitchell, classic first round leader,
Unreal.
just does not have the same game at all come the weekend. So it was a fun week. It was very exciting to watch, and PGA Tour Pro Dice got Straka again, and then his other winner, right, Ryan Fox, my guy, Mr. Foxy.
Your guy.
John liked him because he moved his family over to the States, and he's
That
trying to solidify his life
I
over here,
forget
and he
at a
did that.
certain point. Yeah, I mean I didn't even I saw after the tournament finished up basically that he because I saw he was tied and then I saw Hughes was one up like when Fox was already done. So I guess Hughes probably must have bogeyed 17 or 18, I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, 18, he hooked it way left. He had to lay up on the par four.
Oh, before the water, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So he must have bogeyed 18, let Fox back in it. And then Fox, I mean, that chip was just so
Oh,
pure. He's an elite golfer. I obviously know he's a 38-year-old rookie, so it's not like your general way of getting there, but he was elite on the DP. He's won big events. Like what was the what's that event called? That like the bigger one that he won?
BMW.
Yeah, he won the BMW with Rory, Hatton, Straka, all those guys in the field and chasing him down on Sunday. I visually remember Hatton coming from like 5, 6 back for a while.
Yep.
But he's a good golfer. Obviously, I'm not sure if he'll really be able to do anything in any of these elevated events per se. But if he does get up to that comfort level, he is very long off the tee and he's pretty solid around the greens.
He's
But
a good putter. Yeah, he's
yeah,
a really good putter. His main thing is kind of distance control. Gets a little off with the irons every once in a while. On PJ Tour courses, you can't short side yourself on a
no,
consistent basis. So, honestly, a course like Quail Hollow should fit his game style in terms of bombing it off the tee and giving himself wedges in when other guys are hitting 6, 7 iron, which we'll get into, right? There's a bunch of holes out there where if you can hit it high and far and straight, it makes a huge difference,
yeah,
compared to a majority of the field. So Johnny Dice, another winner. And it's a good time to be a Brothers on the Green listener. So I saw somebody say they're going to put their 401k on your pick this week. I wouldn't recommend that. That's what you call mushing the pick, but we appreciate the support from everybody.
yes.
So now we're into the second major of the year, the PGA Championship. I think it's a fantastic move to move it from August, right, which is just a absolute disgusting 100-degree weather, soft golf courses, storms all over the place, right, till May, where
Yeah.
a lot of the time the courses throughout the
Spring
country are as
training.
good as you're going to get them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're as pure as you can get a golf course.
Hmm.
Quail Hollow, you listen to different podcasts and you listen to different golf pages. Quail Hollow is great, but you see the course a little too often for it to be a major venue, right?
That's what I was seeing a decent amount. Some guys aren't like too happy with it being in the major rotation, but I mean, based off like scores alone, I obviously up until the last 2 years where Rory won the Wells Fargo at like 17, and then Wyndham won at 19. It wasn't like a course that it seemed like guys really tore up too much. And then the previous winner was JT in 2017 when they hosted the PGA. It was only 8 under, so I don't think it's about the course itself. I just think that it's in the PGA rotation.
Yeah.
It's just a bit
No,
too
that
common of
is the main. I think that's the main thing that people are saying, right? I mean, it's a good risk reward course. You got short par five there. You got a couple short par fours, and the majority of it for most of the field is going to be 200 plus yard approaches, which I like to see those guys have to strike long iron after long iron instead of wedge after wedge, right? So, I mean, it's a great venue. It's a great golf course. It could host pretty much any event that you want it to host.
hmm
It's just there's so many good golf courses throughout the country where, if the PGA of America, it's a very political thing, right? They got relationships with these courses, right? It hosted a President's Cup. There's so many different venues that could test these guys' ability in different ways. This
Oh
is
yeah,
really just a bomb and gouge sort of course, where you're hitting driver a majority of the time. But it's a good venue, right? It's gonna get the right winner.
yeah,
I think it's really going to be a top heavy sort of leaderboard, because of those things that we spoke about, right? Being able to hit it high and far, which is, really what most of the top players in the world are the best at. Um,
yeah,
so, like you were saying, and the last couple PGAs have been great events, right? I mean, even though Valhalla 21 under won, which
yeah.
I never loved to see in a major, it was Bryson versus Xander, right? Two guys that were playing the best golf last year. Xander had two major wins, obviously, right? Bryson,
Contended at 3 out of 4, or
yeah,
1-1. Contended at
yeah.
Augusta and PGA, and then I don't think he did anything at the Open.
And Bryson, right, same sort of story. He competed at Augusta, competed here, and then won the U.S. Open.
Yep,
Didn't have a great British Open, but it was the two guys that were playing the best golf that week, without a doubt, right? Brooks Koepka at Oak Hill.
yep,
Upstate New York could be a little dicey this time of the year, but that's a great venue.
yeah,
A great golf course, 9 under one there. JT at Southern Hills, that was a great tournament.
yep.
He just beat Zalatoris.
That's was that they have the 3-hole playoff. That's great. They
Yep.
did 16, 17, 18 when JT
Cam
won.
Young was one or two out of that playoff. I remember. Yeah,
He
one.
doubled 16.
16, right? Yeah, doubled 16. Classic, but again, Cam Young viable this week. He's reliable. And then Phil at the Ocean Course, right? So the last four PGAs have been pretty fun sort of finishes, fun events, produced great leaderboards.
Yep.
So the PGA gets a lot of slack for kind of not having an identity, right? It's kind
Yeah.
of fair but tough at the same time. The other ones have a true identity. And I think a lot of that is because it doesn't have a true rotation. They kind of just are playing random different courses on a year by year basis.
I agree.
And then the last time it was here, right, 2017 PGA, JT won at -8. So, like you
Yep.
were saying, I mean, even though there's been a couple low winners the last few years here, I think when it gets set up for a major, right, they tuck the pins a little more, they tip it out, the rough is a
Yep.
little thicker, and the pressure is just ramped up that much more. It is going to be somewhere I would say in the 10 to 12 range because it will definitely be softer this year.
Exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see it get to like that. I agree. 10 to 12, maybe,
And
13, 14
Yeah,
if
well,
it's
somebody will shoot 7 under the first day probably with it
always,
being soft, and
always.
then reality sets in and they realize where they're at, and then it'll probably be Keith Mitchell.
I
Um,
mean, he's literally a better player than Tiger on Sundays. Sorry, not on Sundays, on Thursdays.
yeah, definitely not on Sundays.
2000 versus this year for Keith. He's a full stroke better than Tiger on Thursdays.
Yep. And then
But
a quick course breakdown, right? Par 71, so three par fives, 7,600 yards, just a monster of a course.
yep.
The two drivable par fours are both great holes, right? Eight, a little more straightforward. Rory got it. You were showing me his shot tracker from last year. He was around the green all 4 days, which is just nuclear. I mean, it's drivable, but it's 340.
No, it's still a deep hole, but it's obviously for those bombers we call them, they're gonna have no problem getting there all 4 days. I'm assuming.
Yeah, and then at the same time, if you don't hit it 310 plus, you might as well lay back because you don't want a 30, 40 yard pitch shot out of the rough to those greens.
No,
So it's a good hole. 14 is a nice drivable par four, right, with that water on the left.
that's a bit more choice.
The
Like,
fairway kind of brings it down to the right. A lot of guys end up about in that short bunker, like 50, 60 yards of the green short right, where it's just a brutal shot. So again, a good risk reward hole. Bunch of long par fours, five par fours over 480, three over 500. Number one is one of those holes that Rory just rips it over the trees,
yep.
has wedge in every time, while most of the field's hitting like 5, 6 iron in.
hmm
16 and 18, right? That the last three holes, they call it the Green Mile. I mean, they're solid holes. I think they overhype it a little bit in terms of a finish.
16's tough. And 18 obviously it has the water along the
Yeah,
left.
it's tough holes. It's tough
But
holes.
yeah, they're not like there's nothing like, too dramatic to them. They're just like tough holes, I would call them. And one thing about the Green Mile is that I actually didn't know it was referred to as the Green Mile, and Stephen Rand told me that earlier. And I don't usually get my golf info
Hmm.
from Stephen, so quick shout out to Steve.
And sorry if I keep looking up. I'm just watching the Knicks
No,
freaking
what's that
suck.
13? Yeah,
8-0 run the Celtics are on right now.
I know.
But yeah, shout out Steven Rand. Got to
Yes,
put
but
that.
quickly for just before we get into like the odds and everything like that, obviously, so of course, like you said, the what was it? The 5 par 4s over 480, three over 500, and then the par threes. It doesn't seem like there's anything unusual about them for the most part. Pretty standard, what you see for these events. It seems like 17 is the toughest one, and obviously, I remember that video of JT's in 2017, his approach shot there, putting it to like 15 feet, and
Yeah,
then
rip
having
the
that.
7 iron.
Exactly. Having that birdie to sort of secure the tournament at that point. But it's a great course. Obviously, we see it every year, so we should have a good amount of numbers, everything like that, to back up who we're thinking based off course history. And I'm definitely excited. But obviously, if you want, let's get into the odds board now and sort of just go over some of these guys one by one.
Yeah, so we'll start off with the top four guys. And I think three of them are really in their own sort of world.
Yeah,
But we got Scottie plus 400, Rory plus 450, Bryson all the way down to plus 700. Last night he was at plus 1200.
I know.
And
That's
then
quick.
John Rahm plus 1800. And Rahm, deservingly so, is, a major winner. He is John Rahm, but has not got a worldwide win at all in a couple years. So, those top three guys I think have kind of separated themselves in terms of being the cream of the crop when it comes to professional golf.
I definitely agree. Obviously, Scotty, he's been doing it for 3 years now, week in, week out. He got off the win at the CJ Cup a couple weeks ago, and I think I think this is the year where he'll finally probably get a major outside of the Masters because obviously, he has the two right now, but both of those came at Augusta. And one thing that's weird about Scotty this week, Bob, is that he hasn't played Quail Hollow. He's never played the Wells Fargo. He's never played Quail's
Really?
Hollow. This is his first time actually playing the course, and I'm not sure how much of an impact that will really have on him. But compared to the rest of the field, I'm assuming he has to be one of the few guys that hasn't played an event here in the past.
No, I mean that's interesting. I did not know that. That's definitely something to take into account, right? Considering it is a course they play year after year, and the more you get comfortable with the course, the
Always.
better, right? I mean, obviously he can come out and just strike the ball like Scotty Scheffler does,
Exactly.
but you definitely get a better feel for the greens and little breaks here and there when
Mhm.
you've played it year after year compared to never playing it before. So that's something to definitely think about, right? I mean, neither of us will probably take him or Rory this week considering their odds.
And then Rory, I mean, this is basically his favorite place to I mean, obviously, maybe he has some other favorite courses, but in terms of how much success he's had, he's won 4 times here. He's it's just as good of a fit as you can get. You gotta drive it long, drive it straight. You got to be able to putt pretty well, and obviously, he does all of those things at an elite level. And he's one of those guys that, like you sort of referenced earlier, there's so many, not blind tee shots, but like where you can cut corners and take advantage of the distance. And obviously, no one outside of Rory and Bryson are really more equipped to do that this week, obviously, with their games right now.
Yeah, no, it's going to be very fun to watch. Jordan Spieth called it Rory McIlroy Country Club,
Yeah.
right? So that's saying something. He has 4 wins here, Rory. He's been year in and year out, loves this course, and again, a lot of that is because he can take advantage of a few different lines off the tees where he's 50, 60 yards in front of guys, right? Even though he might only hit it 20 yards further.
Just the
Taking
angle.
that, yeah, just the angle. He's 50, 60 yards closer coming into the green
Yep.
than those guys. And Bryson, he's been getting bet down a lot, right? A lot of money must be coming in on Bryson, and for good reason, because he hits it similar distance to Rory, right? A little more spinny where they carry it the same. Rory probably gets a little bit more rollout, I would say,
Yeah.
in general. But his irons have been better, I think, compared to the Masters, right? He's been in contention in every live event since then.
Mhm.
He finally got that win.
Korea.
Yeah, and again, there's tough to really take a lot from that considering his floor is so high,
Yeah.
right? But he's been playing consistent golf, and his last couple years in the majors, there's no way to argue that he's been one of the guys, right? I mean,
Mhm.
Xander, Rory, and Bryson, one of them have been winning or in contention in every single major for the last couple of years. So Bryson, I'm very keen on this week. And then John Rahm, he's played well around here in the past. He's a guy that, when his driver's hot, he's always going to be in some sort of contention. His irons haven't been as sharp, it seems. There's not stats to back that up with the live stuff. But he's been hitting his wedges more to 20 feet rather than 10 to 12 feet, it seems. Just from watching the limited live golf that I've watched.
Simply outside of Bryson, I don't think there's one live player that's benefited in terms of their performance in majors from the move. It's just like, how is it ideal to play? Where they played? They played in the States and then they went over to what was it, South Korea or wherever,
Yep.
whatever it was. And then now you got to come back over to North Carolina. It's just not a good way to prepare for these events. So I think that does honestly has affected Rahm and his performance in these. But I really do think Rahm's like the main guy on there that cares the most about like, his just competitive fire and him wanting to get back into contention with these big names, Scottie, Rory, compete against them rather than what he's been doing on live. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him get in contention, but at the same time, it's just 18-1. It's not a number that I'd be willing to back compared to some of these other names we got below him.
No, and I could see him getting off to a bit of a slow start, right? And then from there, getting himself in contention.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
at best, I don't think it's going to be his week. But again, player with that sort of golf, you never know what
Never
can
know.
happen.
Yeah. Wouldn't be surprised, but just based off what we've been seeing and then, how some of these other guys are playing, it just, I don't think the 18-1 is really worth it compared to some of these other names.
Yeah, no, 100%.
All
So
right.
those are the top 4 guys, right? And this is a week where it feels like it's a top heavy week, right? So those are 4 guys I expect to get their name in there at some point. And then what was the next crop of guys you want to talk about?
That's we'll call them tier one, and then for tier two, we have the 20-1 range to like the 33-1 range because there's only one guy in the 30 range, but for those five, we have Justin Thomas 20-1, Xander Schauffele 22-1, Colin Morikawa 22-1. I don't know why I said that weird, but Ludwig at 25-1, and then you got Niemann at 33-1 for that like sort of that second tier.
Yeah, so I know you like a few guys in here, as do I, right? I am high on Xander this week again. Just gonna go back to him. He's definitely close to clicking. Wasn't great with his wedge play last week, the first couple rounds, but had a solid Sunday.
Yeah.
JT, I mean, he's won here in the past, right? He's playing great golf. It's really going to come down to his driver this upcoming
Exactly.
week,
Exactly.
which it was better last week. It has not been great all year, right, to say the least. And he's more of a short course player these last few years, but it's JT. I mean, he's won here, he's had success, and you never know what's going to happen.
Exactly. I mean, I agree with that. He has been a bit of a sort of better at those courses where you're plotting your ball around, not having the forced driver off so many tees, but at the same time, it just feels like, it's a matter of time this year with how sharp he's been until he really gets himself into true contention on a Sunday at a major. Obviously, he's done that plenty in these PGA events, putting himself in a great spot week in, week out. But I think, these next three opportunities he has at these major championships is where he'll really, you know, show out somewhat because of, I just think JT's back. Obviously, he had his run when he was younger. I honestly wasn't too much into golf at that point, so I don't really remember JT when he was at top form, winning majors and everything like that. But at the same time, seeing him now, how sharp his game is, his putting's top of the tour. I think he's top 25 now compared to like 100 plus place last year. Then you got his irons as sharp as could be, wedge game as sharp as could be. But like you said, it's going to come down to his driver. How well is he getting off the tee? Is he, one, getting into the fairway? And then two, is he getting enough distance off there if he is missing the fairways where it's not going to punish him too much? But like you reference again, I do like him this week, 20-1 compared to some of those numbers below him. I think it's a pretty solid number because I think he's a top three player in the world right now.
Yep. And then we got Morikawa and Ludwig, two
Yep.
guys. Well, especially Ludwig is he's been struggling since his win at Torrey. He's been in the bottom 10 of the leaderboard in a lot of these elevated events. His game is just not there. His putting has been bad. His iron play is not great. His driving is not the same. So that's tough coming into a major like this, right? The last event he's really played well in was the Masters.
Yeah.
So he could be the type of guy where he does elevate his game for these big, big, big events like the majors.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
do like the number. Like
yeah, the
20.
number's still a little high for where he's been.
Yeah, I agree. The only reason that it does interest me somewhat is because he's just an elite driver of the golf ball still. Like that hasn't
Yep.
fallen too much, and he should be able to take advantage of that this week. But his iron game really has been so poor, and then also like his putter really hasn't been cooperating much since his win, and then also like you said, the Masters. So I probably won't be touching it this week, but 25-1 for Ludwig is a pretty solid number at a major championship.
Yeah. Morikawa, I just saw he's thinking about putting a 9 wood in the bag this week. For like a 225 shot, trying to land it soft. That's kind of his problem though, is he's gonna have to hit a lot of 9 woods.
A lot of those. A
Yeah,
lot.
right. He hits the ball. He was hitting it decently far last week, right? But they were still getting good first bounces when the ball landed. He's like a 290 carry guy, 295,
A
which
lot of
again,
carry this week, you're assuming.
yeah, I think at least the first couple days it's going to be not a lot of roll in the fairways. The greens might still be kind of firm considering they are new greens, right? They just put these greens in 2 years ago.
They have like the air, whatever.
They have the sub air underneath as well where they could suck the water out.
Yeah,
So it's going to be firm, I think, still or decently firm coming into the greens with those long iron or 9 wood approaches.
yeah.
Morikawa, probably a great top 10 sort of bet where he just figures out a way
He
to
just
shoot.
doesn't putt well enough. You got to you're gonna have to make a decent amount of putts, and
Yeah,
I
and he
just
hasn't won in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. 22-1 compared to like Ludwig 25 or last guy in this range that we had was Niemann 33-1. And Niemann's one of those guys that we know how good he is, but obviously the majors has been a pretty much a dud at this point compared to what we expect out of him. So obviously the Masters I forgot exactly where he finished. I don't think it was really anything too good. And then the week after he went right to a live event, won right away. I mean, it's just so like mind-boggling that he could be that dominant on live with some of those players like Rahm, Bryson that he's going up against, and then he gets into a major and he can't sniff the top 15, 10 of the event at any point during the week. So I mean, I do think it's a matter of time before he obviously does get in contention. We talked about it when we were talking about the Masters, but I don't know. He confuses me, man. 33-1 for how good he is a good number, but he hasn't shown anything in majors.
Yeah, and one kind of downfall I see with him this week is he likes to hit a low driver.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, he likes to hit a low. I mean, he bombs it. He hits the ball very far, but for him to hit the higher bomb I don't think that's what he's most comfortable with.
No.
Again, of course he can do it. He's a world-class player, but to have to do it week or round in, round out for 4 days, at this type of venue,
Not a preference.
yeah, that's not, I don't think what he feels most comfortable with.
Yeah.
So, again, those guys are all in play. I think that's kind of where a lot of the betting market will be in that sort of top third or top, 5-10% of the field.
Yeah.
And then from there, we got guys like Cantlay, Fleetwood, Hatton, Matsuyama, all 40 or 45 to 1. And then rounding off 45 to 1 is Brooks.
Yep.
So those are guys that I'm also interested in, right? Cantley, I don't really see him winning a major right now. With the way his putting has been. I know he putted well last week. He's putted well on bent greens his whole life, or his whole career, I should say.
Mhm.
Fleetwood, another guy, very solid player. Could see him playing solid golf, but to get the win, I think is a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah. I mean, I like Fleetwood, I like Cantlay, but honestly, Cantley's number intrigues me a bit more than Fleetwood. Like 40 to 1 for Cantlay. He's been a premier ball striker this year. It's not like he's not playing good golf. It's just like he doesn't have it on Sundays the few times that he's been in contention, but also he was one of the best putters on tour, I swear to God, a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if the numbers back it up. And then
Oh,
now
definitely.
it was a bit better last week, but at the same, like numbers wise, this year he's been horrific compared to years past. So I think that's been his main downfall. But I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't really blame people for attacking Cantley at 40 to 1 because I do think it's a solid number. I just don't want to be compared to some of these other names and what I think of them. Like if they get into contention on Sunday, I'd rather be on them compared to Cantley and what he's been showing.
Yep, and then I know you were speaking about Hatton, so he's a guy that's played well
Yeah.
here in the past, right?
Yeah, he's played well here in the past, and I mean, like, I don't think he's too long off the tee, right? It's not like he's really getting it out
He's
there.
300. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets it out there what he needs to, but I'm pretty sure, like, again, I don't have live numbers which suck, but I'm pretty sure he's a pretty elite long, like 175, 200, 215
Yep.
range for his iron. So I mean, I do think it's a pretty good fit for him. And then also he putts well, right? I mean, he could really putt it when he gets going. Obviously he's a hothead where maybe that affects him from time to time, but once he does get into a rhythm on the greens, he actually is a pretty solid putter. So 45 to 1, that does interest me as well. I'm not sure if I'll be on it with my card, but it's definitely, a pretty solid number for a guy that I think is going to knock off a major at some point.
Yeah, and then Hideki and Brooks, Hideki played pretty well last week overall, right? Like we were speaking of before we
Sunday
started.
was gross.
He had two of the best putting rounds of his career and then two of the worst, all within the same 4 days. So his ball striking was pretty consistently solid. Sunday,
Too. He's on the putting green at I'm sure a lot of people saw it. He's on the putting green at Quail Hollow in the pouring rain buckets under umbrellas where he has nothing to putt on other than a puddle, but he's out there on the greens grinding. So I mean,
yeah,
that
he
was a
wants it. He definitely wants it.
he wants it.
And then we got Brooks, right? I mean, he's won this event, what is it, three times?
Three.
Yeah. I mean, he's got three PGA championships. I would like to see him get in contention again. Unfortunately, he really hasn't been in contention on live at all this year.
I just don't know where he's at with his game.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not great, for where Brooks Koepka should be.
Yeah.
But, again, he's the type of guy that if he could just play a solid Thursday, he can get all the confidence he needs just from that one round.
Exactly. If something does click, obviously we know Brooks, if he sniffs contention, he's gonna go right through that door. Obviously none of those
Not
other,
scared. Yeah.
not at all. I forget his famous quote, but when he was like, you get to a major tournament, there's about 50% of the field that simply can't win because their mind's too weak. And that's sort of how he thinks about it. He thinks he's
He whittled it down to like 80% of the field can't win after like a few different things, which I mean, he's pretty much right.
right. Right. No, it's for sure. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in contention, but at the same time, we just simply don't know where Brooks's game is at. And I like you probably said yourself, it's probably not in a good spot if he's not contending on live.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And then a few other guys we want to talk about, right? We got Hovland, 55 to 1. Lowry 55 to 1, and Spieth 60 to 1.
Yeah. I mean, Hovland, every time we've talked about the PGA, I've brought him up now for about a month. So, I mean, his number last week, I'm pretty sure was at 28 to 1. And I don't know what could have happened to Victor Hovland for it to jump to 55 to 1, but I definitely appreciate it. I think that's a great number for Victor. And like this course, we'll get into a couple things later when we go over our cards, but Hovland for this week at 55 to 1, I love it. Then you got your guy Lowry, right? 55 to 1, playing great golf all year. Tough, really tough loss for him the other day, not the other day, yesterday to Straka. You could see him after he three putted on 18, really just like very upset with himself, it seemed like, with how he let his probably the nerves get to him and everything like that. But what do you think of him this week?
Yeah, last week got 16 that par three. I don't understand how he can let himself miss left of that green. And then 18, right, hits a great approach shot. He hammered that putt. I mean, that was a
I mean,
terrible putt.
awful. Awful.
What do I think this week? I think he would, I think he's going to play solid golf, but he's one of those guys that, you hit it 290, 300. It's a tough golf course, right? I mean, it's going to be tough to get it around all 4 days under par. So I think it's going to be a stretch for him to win on a course like this, especially when the fairways are soft, right? If there was some chase in the fairways, I could see him, giving himself a better chance. But when the course is soft and it's playing 7,600 yards, that's not what Shane Lowry's, really looking for.
And you remember him last year at Valhalla? He was like just made the cut, and then he shot like 10 under on Saturday to get into contention. And he folded on Sunday, but that just
Forgot
popped.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause he went crazy on Saturday. Then the last guy you mentioned before was Spieth. He's at 60 to 1 to wrap up the that range of guys. And I mean, Spieth, honestly, like I was taking a look at the number. He's been playing better than I think people realize this year. His approach has been pretty solid. He's obviously pretty long off the tee now. His putter's been in a decent spot, but he's still Spieth, right? His mind, I just don't trust his mind to be able to like, handle a couple bad shots and like be able to keep the momentum that he needs to win a tournament like this. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him contend somewhat, but I just don't think he like can keep momentum long enough in these types of events to really win it, like versus guys like Rory and Scottie, and guys that you can't afford to make mistakes against.
Yeah, and that's why it's tough to really go down the board and give many outrights, right?
Exactly.
So, any other guys down further you wanted to chat about?
No, I mean we just let's see. In the 70 to range, we got Corey Connor 70 to 1, Straka 70 to 1. So I mean I would like Straka this week, but he just won. I don't, and like he sort of said himself, it's not the best fit. He's not too long
Yeah.
off the
He
tee
played
for.
well here last year looking at
Yeah.
the leaderboard, but
He's a great long iron player, so it's not like he can't still get himself in a good spot. But I just think, back to back, it's not something I usually bet on for guys after, they're just coming off a win. You got Henley 70 to 1. He's one of those shorter hitters too, right? He's very good. He won earlier this year, but he's, at least in my mind, at probably gonna have more success at courses where he's plotting it around. It's more about accuracy, getting wedges in your hands, stuff like that. So I mean, I don't really expect much from him this week myself. But one popular guy here right after him, Patrick Reed, he's down to 80 to 1. I've seen a bunch about him on X. A lot of guys are liking him this week. And honestly, numbers wise, he does have some pretty decent course history as well. But I mean, I don't I don't really see him at this stage. I know he did it at Augusta, he's contending there last
he
year and
loves Augusta though.
but yeah, this isn't, I don't see it like a lot of guys do, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, he's a fun guy to watch when he's playing well. He's kind of he's a grinder, but that's not what we're looking for this week. We're
No.
looking for guys that hit towering long irons and hit bombs off the tee, which has never been his game really.
No, not at all.
One
But
guy I could see right playing decent this week. He hasn't been in great form since his win. Is Minwoo Lee.
yeah,
Minwoo can absolutely bomb it off the tee. Has a great short game. His one thing is whether the irons are going to work for him or not, which you just never know what's going to come his way with that stuff. So those are a lot of the guys I want to talk about. Berger, right? He's a top 20 machine. Might talk a little bit about him during the picks. Keith Mitchell, guys like that. But then we go down. through 300 to 1. Cam Young, we'll skip down there. Yeah, 300 to 1. And
Yeah.
Ryan Fox, 300 to 1. Two guys that are finally coming off good weeks. So let's get into the picks.
Yeah.
And then we'll see how the week plays out.
All right. So I'll start off on mine with my I guess my lowest odds guy. I'm starting off this week with Justin Thomas JT at 20 to 1. And just a couple of numbers that I wrote down. So last week he gained 5.060 on approach, and then he also gained 2.21 off the tee. And I think the obviously, approach, he's gonna do that. He's an elite iron player. He has been that all year. He's been that his whole career. So that's not really any sort of issue for him. But I do think it's a big sign for him to be gaining off the tee. We talked about it earlier when we were just talking about, his odds and going over that tier of players. But if he can figure something out off the tee, and he actually did last week, and he puts himself in the fairway, somewhat consistently this week, he's going to be a guy that, with how sharp his game is right now, that I really have no doubt if he, again, his driver's on, he's going to be in contention come Sunday with how sharp his putting and his approach play has been all year.
Yeah, no, I mean he's a guy that you would not be shocked to see in contention.
Yeah.
My low odds guy this week, he's now at plus 700. Bryson, I got him last night plus 12, plus 1200. I guess my $20 bet really brought down the line. But no, he's playing some great golf. I think his driver is a complete weapon, right? He's been very straight and obviously long, and
Yep.
that's really going to set himself up to give himself some good look into the greens. His chipping has been phenomenal.
Short game's gross.
His short game is really, really unbelievable compared to what it once was, and the putter's solid.
Yeah.
It's hit or miss than the chipping and driving, but I just see himself giving himself another chance at it. Similar to Masters, I had him at the Masters, and then you could just tell it was Rory's day from the jump, and he made it close, obviously. But I got Bryson 12 to 1 as my low guy this week.
Yeah, I mean, I love Bryson. I just simply rather not be on a number that low. Obviously, you have him, Rory, and Scottie as the three favorites. But I think for Bryson this week, it's all going to be about his irons, right? Like, we know what he's going to do with his driver for the most part. We know how good his short game is. We know he could roll it at an elite level as well. So, I mean, it's all about if his irons are on like they were, for the most of last year at Augusta, the U.S. Open, everything like that. And if they are, he's going to be there on Sunday, no doubt, at a course like this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So I
then
like that.
I'll give
Go
my
ahead.
second pick. I got Xander 22 to 1. He's a guy that, won the PGA last year. I could see him getting on not a full Brooks run, but he won the PGA and US Open last year. He can follow up with one more this year. He's on, that's a pretty sick run of golf
Yeah.
at this level. And his game is rounding into form, right? We saw last week I talked about how his short game was starting to come back, which was the only thing he was missing. His short game was decent last week. His iron play wasn't where he wants it to be. He was the longest driver in the field last week, which I thought was very interesting. So he's bombing the ball off the tee.
Nuclear. It just his accuracy has been a bit like his speed hasn't dropped off at all, but his since he's come back at least his accuracy has been a bit off. But if he could find that, because I like this play too, we talked about it. It's a guy that I'm on as well, and also just course history, right? Everything you're saying, his form
Yep.
this year, but also the last 2 years now, both times he's plays the played the Wells Fargo, he's came in second place. He lost the Wyndham, he was 15 under. Wyndham finished at 19, and then last year. He was pretty much tied with Rory, I'm pretty sure, going into the back nine, and then Rory shot 7 under on the back or something like that all the way on Sunday. So, I mean, his course history is great. He's nuclear off the tee. That's going to be very big. He's very good irons with like the 175, 200 range, which we'll have a lot of this year. And when he's on, he could putt as well. Like he's one of the better putters on tour. So I mean, deep off the tee, good iron player, good putter. That's three of the main, I'd say the three main keys this week and something that he's got at a premium level, when he's executing.
Yeah, I mean he's 3.1 strokes gained around over his last three starts at Wells Fargo, right? Which is extremely elite to say the least. And you're right, he lost by five and lost by five on the back nine last year. So Um,
Exactly.
yeah, that is the case.
Hmm.
So those are my. I actually have one more. Do you have one more outright?
Yeah, I have a few, but you go ahead, give your last one, and then I'll just wrap mine up after.
All right. So my last outright this week is Mr. Cam Young, 300 to 1. I honestly, I've been saying it for a long time. I truly believe his talent is top 10 in the world when he's actually playing the golf that he knows he can play. He had a caddy change last week. He's got his college boy on the bag, Kyle Sturbinski, who's a very good player in his own right. So I think that's a nice mind shift in terms of, being a little more comfortable out there, being able to talk through some things, being with a guy that knows his game when it was at his best, right? I think he kind of needs that reminder out there and that confidence. His last caddy really was only there while he was playing bad golf. So I think that's a big deal. Especially when it comes to a week like this, where Cam put himself in contention at a lot of majors first 2 years of his career. Now
DJ,
we're on year four.
yep.
Um, and I think that, 300 to 1 are odds that I think that everyone that listens to this podcast should just put a little sprinkle on and maybe we'll have a sweat come Sunday.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean I agree. Obviously it's a very long shot. He's 300 to 1 for a reason, but the only thing, not the only thing, there's been plenty holding Cam back over the year and then over the years as well to in terms of getting an actual win in past years, but his iron play has been as bad as it gets this year. Throughout the bag, wedges, mid irons, long irons, he's been horrific. And then, last week we finally saw literally our first glimpse of the season. He gained on Saturday like on Saturday gained like 3+ on approach. Sunday he gained like 1.5 on approach. So I mean, seeing that, I don't blame you. I think 300 to 1 for this type of course too. He's deep off the tee. He's 22nd in putting this year. So I mean, I think
Yeah.
a lot of that has to do with how awful he's been hitting it and the putts he's had to make to shoot some okay rounds. So I think that goes a little bit involved with that. But at the same time, if he's putting better and he's actually found something with the irons, his driving's still in an okay spot. So if he, gets himself out there like we know he can deep off the tee, is better with the irons like we saw Saturday, Sunday last week, I wouldn't be surprised to see him at least give us a sweat like you said.
Yeah. No, I'm hoping that we wake up Thursday. He has an early tea time and he gets himself off to a good start.
Exactly. I think that would be big if he can get himself off to a good start and sort of get some memories coming back from what he did in those 2022 majors. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. So like that, and then so I got two more guys on mine. So I have I'm gonna go with Niemann. I'm gonna go with Niemann at 33 to 1. I sort of just confirmed that to myself here,
Mhm.
and I don't have any numbers to back that up, but I just think, again, we know how good he is. If you watch, I don't really watch it, but if you watch him play, you see his swing, you see like how much he could shape the ball, how deep he is off the tee. He's a decent putter. He's not a good putter by any means from what I've seen, but he can, roll it when he gets going
He's a
like
good
most
putter.
guys. Yeah, so he could putt how he needs to get to the score that obviously we need to get to win. But this is more of a talent play, right? 33 to 1. He's probably a top 5 talent in the world in terms of how good he can be. And we've seen that plenty of times. It just we haven't seen it when it really matters. But I'm gonna take a shot at it, 33 to 1. Think it's a good course fit. And hopefully I could get a little bit of a sweat come the weekend if he is able to get off to a good start Thursday, Friday.
Yep. And who's your last guy?
Yeah, so my last guy is the one that I've talked about the most, Victor Hovland at a 55 to 1. I just can't real with I just think it's a silly number. I think Victor Hovland is still one of the elite players in the world. He won at the Valspar, got that, quote unquote monkey off his back in a way where he could sort of tell himself that even if he's not feeling the best, whatever it might be that goes through that psycho's mind, he could still compete with the best in the world like we saw. And a couple quick numbers as well. So not numbers, but he's competed at the last two PGA championships, like we referenced earlier. He was in the last group with Brooks at the 2 years ago, and he was honestly right there with him coming down the stretch. But he was in the fairway bunker, I think, on 15 or 16, I forget where exactly, and he didn't get it out. He sort of plugged in the lip,
Yep.
had to take a drop, so that fucked him over and sort of got him right out of the contention that he was in at the time. But he was playing well coming down the stretch, and then last year, I mean he was playing again bad golf last year at this point, but at the PGA, he had a putt on 18 on the 72nd hole on the 18 to tie Bryson and Xander I think he ended up three putting if I'm remembering correctly. So I mean the par putt didn't really mean anything at that point, but he knows how to contend at these, I guess, styles of venues that the PGA Championship has. And then the last thing I will say, a nice little stat for Victor is that he's the best player on tour in proximity from the hole from 175 to 200 yards away. And like we
That's a
said,
nice stat. Yeah.
we know how important that is this week. And obviously, when I think of Hovland, I think of a guy that could roll it. I think of a guy that's an elite long iron player. And then when he's on, he's not deep off the tee per se, but he can get it out there. He's got a good amount of distance that he can get when he's feeling comfortable. And I honestly think that win at the Valspar, it's now time for him to really, contend at one of these majors because obviously we know he'll not most likely, he's going to win one at a certain point. And I feel pretty good with like for my four picks that I have, I'm probably most confident in Victor going into this week for some reason.
Yeah, no, that's something that I'll be throwing on because I do like you've been speaking about him for a while. You like where he's at,
Yeah.
and for some reason you like him at this course. So well, I'm in on that. You're hot right now.
Yeah.
All right.
So I have just to go through my guys. So I have JT, I have Xander, I have Niemann, and I have Hovland for my like four card. And then I also am throwing on Cam Young like you. He's
Hmm.
obviously more of in the long shot category based off his number, but I'll be on all five of those guys for outright this week.
Yeah, and I got Bryson plus 1200 last night again. He's down to 7-1. Xander and then Cam Young. So I'm lighter card this week. We'll focus on PGA Tour Pro Dice. I do have some top 20s that I am very interested in.
I agree.
So to start, Sung Jae plus 270. He's played phenomenal golf around here, right? I was just looking at the Sung Jae fifth in strokes gained over the last five events at Quail Hollow. 1.25 strokes gained around, 50% top 10 rate, 50% top 20, right? Makes the cut 75% of the time. So that's a guy that I do like where his game is trending finally. He's starting to hit his irons better. He's a streaky putter. His putting has been solid. So I like where Sung Jae's at. Tony Finau plus 320.
He played
I
well
don't.
last week.
Yeah, he played well last week. It just feels like a course that should fit his game because he's a guy that could bomb it. Solid long iron player. Putting is really his downfall. Completely. I mean, his toe is like 3 inches off the ground when he putts.
It's like a baseball bat.
Yeah. So that's obviously the concern when it comes to Tony Finau. But I do just really just have a good feeling about him this week. And
Huh?
then two more. I got Homa plus 500. Another guy, finally his game is turning around. He's been striking the ball much, much better. His putting's always been solid, but his ball striking is the main thing where the last few events he's been giving himself more
Better.
chances at birdie.
Mhm.
And just giving himself a chance to finish in a decent spot in the event.
And he's won here.
And he's won here. He's
He
another
loves this
guy.
course based off what we see.
The last four starts here, he's third in strokes gained right around this golf course, 1.82 strokes around. Xander and Rory are about
Right.
a stroke better than everybody else.
Mhm.
But Homa's in that third spot, 75%
And he
inside
was
the
good at
top
the
10.
President's Cup.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, exactly. So he really does enjoy this golf course for whatever reason, right? Very different from where he normally plays well out in California.
Yeah.
And he is that sort of a horses for courses type of guy. So I like Homa plus 500. And then my last one, Eugenio Chacarria, plus 750. I do. He's been playing great golf on the European Tour. He's made it clear that he was upset he joined Live. He was really focused on getting into major championships, and he did it by playing great golf out on the DP World Tour and the
Elite.
Asian Tour.
Yeah. Elite.
He bombs the ball. He had a great pedigree as an amateur, and he's finally starting to play some good golf as a pro. So you give me plus 750 on a guy like that, I'll take my chances.
Yeah. I mean, I love those. I think those all have, solid value, based off sort of course fit and then how they've been playing. But there's a lot of nice numbers on here. But a couple guys that I was just looking at that I think I'll probably put a little parlay together for is that let's see.
I
I
mean,
just
another guy just thrown at Wyndham Clark plus 300. I don't love him. He hasn't been playing great, but he's played well here in the past as well.
like David Puig plus 400. I think
Yeah.
this could be a good. I mean, that's my one live guy that I really like, but
Yep.
he he's deep. He's deep off the tee. Obviously, I don't really think he could truly contend here, but plus 400, I wouldn't be surprised to see him sneak into a top 20 potentially, and then. Dean Burmester plus 450. He was top 20 last year at the PGA, so I mean he's played well at major championships before. And I don't even know what his form is, to be quite honest, on live. I think he's played okay, but I think plus 450, deep off the tee again, solid iron player. That's what I'm looking for this week pretty clearly. I think that's a solid number for him there. And then let's see,
Jay Live. Johnny Live.
yeah, Cam Young's at plus 650. Oh, Michael Thorbjornsen plus 650. I think that's a
He's a
decent.
bomber.
He's a bomber, solid iron player. Again, his putting's a bit iffy, but plus 650, a top 20 again for this type of course, how soft it's going to play, how distant, how big distance going to be. That's sort of what I'm riding this week. If you have distance off the tee and then you could put together
Yeah, it's
solid.
going to come down to his feely type of shots, right, throughout the
Exactly.
week and see where he's at there.
But those are all solid value plays, all above like plus 400. I think all those guys have the talent to, get a top 20. I wouldn't be obviously surprised if they weren't going to do that at the end of the day based off, what we're seeing with the odds. But in terms of what I think the course needs this week, I think all of them fit it pretty well.
Yeah, no, and there's, you look down this board, there really are like Andrew Novak, 4-1, playing great golf week in, week out. So I think, there's value in this sort of market here. The winning market is a top heavy sort of thing this week is my gut feeling.
Yeah.
But there's value throughout the board when it comes to this top 20 market. And then once they actually put out make the cut, I think we should put together a make the cut parlay. Right now they just have random guys bunched up together, all minus money. So
Hmm.
not great bets there, but those are our picks for the week. I also think we might put out Keith Mitchell plus 6,000, first round leader. He's been leading four of his last five starts.
I don't know how we don't, to be honest.
Quail Hollow is as he's played solid here, right? He's another guy he's fourth strokes gained over the last five Quail Hollow events.
Mhm.
So with his form right now, especially on Thursdays, it's probably a good idea to put a little sprinkle on
But
that.
he's like probably 250 to 1 to win, or not, maybe not
I think he's
250.
170 to 1,
And then he's freaking plus 6,000
60
first
to
round
1 to
leader.
first. Yeah, which makes sense. They're finally building
No,
it
yeah,
in.
I mean, obviously.
So that's another episode of Brothers on the Green. We're gonna go watch the Knicks. Come on, OG.
But yeah, we'll post some.
Yes,
We were
sir.
talking about it last week, Bobby, but we'll post a couple some three ball action as well.
Yep.
Like throughout the week, try to get some like daily bets. I know Bobby's. What do we want to call it? Morning parlay, morning three.
Yeah, I like to bet the wake up and do a three ball parlay, let's call it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll get some of those going throughout the week, but obviously we'll get this posted, and then I'll also post our card with the plays on X. But let's get another winner and stay hot here.
Yes, sir. Well, we're looking for our sixth outright winner in 11 weeks, which I think could make podcasting history and really blow up Brothers on the Green. So, good night, everybody. Let's get a win.